Welcome. My name is Amy Lykover. I'm the president of the Gerstle Park Neighborhood Association, and we're very happy that you've come. We expect this meeting will be extremely informative, and I'd like you to know that we are videotaping the meeting, and we will put the videotape online on our website. If there's anyone here who doesn't have access to the internet, you can contact. My phone number is listed with the GPNA, and I believe it's listed on the announcement on your letter. You can contact me, and I'll make sure that you find a way to view this. Okay, just double check that you did check in at one of the tables in front, and your address was checked, and that you all received 2 sheets with your address, the square footage of your sidewalk, and other pertinent information. Hold up the sheet that has the lines on it that you're expected to fill in. That sheet will be collected before you go. And in fact, I'm going to ask Mark to put that near the door, just near the door. So if you have to leave early, make sure you put your sheet, and you can throw your little pencil stub in there near the door, just right there on the floor, Mark, so that we get that information. Anyway, we have a very tightly planned meeting, and you'll see the time frame on the agenda. I'm going to give this clicker to you, Gina. Should work. Or do we? So anyway, you're going to see our agenda, and we're going to hear from just about everybody. Okay. Before I turn the floor over to the Vice President, Gina Silvestri, just wanted you to know, remember, that question and answers are going to be entertained at the end. We'll be here for 30 minutes for questions and answers. Can you advance it? Great. And if you have a specific question, let's say, you live at 101 C Street, and there's a particular question you have about the cracking of the sidewalk and the tree, etc., then what you're going to do with that question is you're going to direct that to Kevin McGowan. Do you want to just raise your hand here at DPW? He and his folks, he may refer you to Dave Davenport. Do you want to raise your hand over there, Dave? Or Mark Wright. Mark he's in charge of streets, and Dave is our arborist for the city. So specific questions about your address will be directed specifically to them, and they may even come out and look at your sidewalk to get a better idea of what's going on, all right? Because the last thing we want to happen is people feel as if they don't know what's going on. That said, I'd like to thank the whole panel, everyone who's here. This is Jennifer Maniar, is that how we say it? She has been our construction manager. I'm doing Gina's job, sorry. And this is Hugo Landecker, who's a board member. And then we have Drew Norton, who's a civil engineer. And I introduced all the folks from DPW. That said, I'd like to turn this over to Gina, who's going to talk to you about, if we could advance she's going to talk to you about what we've done to get where we are now. Thank you for coming.
Sorry, I'm a little taller than Amy. First of all, thank you all for coming. I'm Gina Silvestri. I'm the Vice President of Gerstle Park Neighborhood Association. I am the chair of the Sidewalks Committee. That's a title I never thought I'd have. This has been a learning experience for all of us, but I've been very fortunate because this process started over a year ago. And some of you know, we had a big community meeting a year ago, May, when the city first told us about the request to get to work on the sidewalks. At that point, we stepped back a little bit and really kind of thought this through. And then after this past annual meeting in January, we asked for our member volunteers to help us with a committee to take a closer look at this. And I couldn't have asked for a better response than I got. We have a project manager who has been working with local contractors to get us a bid for a group project. We have, and that's Jennifer that you met. Drew Norton is a civil engineer with a firm in the city, and he's been helping us along the way. We have 3 board members, Amy Lykover, Hugo Landecker, and myself. My father is in the front row. George Silvestri is a real estate attorney, and he's been helping, and a former city attorney, and has been helping us. So we have had several meetings now with DPW. Oh, and then back up, and sorry. And Ray Moritz is a very well-known and respected forester and tree consultant. And he has very, very, very graciously given us his time and that of his staff as well, and has been helping us with the tree part of this. So that is, I think I'll, yeah. And then Amy, are you giving this or am I doing that? Let's wait. Okay.
We'll do that at the end.
Okay.
All right. At this time, we'd like to call up Drew and Ray together. Why don't you folks come on up here?
Hi again. Thank you for coming this evening. As Gina mentioned, this has been quite a long journey for us. My name is Drew Norton. I've been practicing civil engineering for over 20 years. I live in Gerstle Park. I have been had my life surrounding sidewalks and streets and trees for a very long time now, and so I'm very familiar with this process. Part of my personal experience, previous place I lived, had to deal with the same thing. It was a very difficult situation to go through in a community. But I'm very fortunate to be able to work with this group here, to be able to step back and look at things in a larger context. With that, my experience working in the professional engineering practice and specifically around hard engineering, such as streets, sidewalks, and curbs and gutters, which we all experience on a daily basis. I also do a lot of work around land use planning, specifically about pedestrian-oriented street systems, alternative modes of transportation, and the conflicts and the combination of urban infrastructure and ecological infrastructure. And so this is something that we do on a planning basis. Very fortunate to live in a community, in a neighborhood that is very rich with its ecological resources. And we're at a time right now which I think is very, very unique, where we are looking at an age of our infrastructure where we have the ecology battling the hard infrastructure. And so it's a new experience for a lot of us, and I think that with that, it's great to see that we come together and look at things differently. One of the things that I noticed right away as I volunteered for this group, a lot of emphasis was placed around the elements, the physical elements, and we were fortunate to be able to step back and take a little bit closer look at the context of the neighborhood, and specifically around the importance of our trees and what they mean to us. And what Ray and I are going to talk about a little bit is the relationship between the trees and the sidewalks, because there is a direct relationship here. The context of the trees and the ecology is very important, because we coexist with these systems, and it's important that we understand them. And I think that we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I think it's important to keep that frame of mind as we move forward with the conversation. The process that we went through, we did an evaluation of the sidewalks. We did a physical walk. We did our own research, our own background sort of assessment. We had multiple meetings where we talked about the process, talked about the nuances of a project like this. From the onset, from the beginning, it seems very simple. You take out sidewalk and you replace the sidewalk. There's a whole labyrinth of conditions and elements that are tied to sidewalks and this type of work. The evaluation that we went through really started looking at physical conditions. And so through our evaluation, we noticed that probably 90% of the sidewalk failures, whether it's heaving, cracking, settlement, is due to some sort of tree root effects, the trees battling the sidewalk. This is something that most urban environments deal with. One of the things that we really looked at too is health and safety, and so ADA compliance, our own health and safety, walking around the streets at night, tripping, falling, spraining ankles. I'm sure we all have experienced that at once in our life, walking in our streets. And then with that, as far as some of you may know, that I think just last week a homeless person tripped and fell in our neighborhood and was required emergency medical attention. So this is sort of the things that are coming front and center to the conditions here in our neighborhood, as well as from a sort of enforcement implementation standpoint. We have to look at things like ADA compliance, and so we have to make sure that our streets and sidewalks meet a certain design threshold that conform with the ADA codes. The relationship of trees to sidewalks is an important relationship that needs to be always considered. The trees rely on the sidewalks. They use the sidewalks as a way to hold themselves up. As an effect of that, the sidewalks are thus being damaged by the tree roots themselves. And we need to keep in mind that each of the each of the property is different. Everybody has their own unique situation. We have private conditions where private irrigation lines cross sidewalks. We have conditions where driveway aprons and driveway approaches may be present on one property and not another. We have conditions where there's private element signage, et cetera, that we have to take into consideration. So these are what we assessed, and this is what we took into consideration as we looked at a simple sidewalk replacement program in context of our neighborhood, and make sure that we kept the goals of preservation of the aesthetics and the beauty and the character of our neighborhood. Okay. So with this, I want to pass it on to Ray, who is going to talk a little bit about the relationship and characteristics of trees.
Some of you any of you from the East Coast or Midwest might recognize this species. This is American elm, you're right. And one of the things we looked at was the biodiversity of our community, and that we should have a variety of species of trees that we can select because of this beautiful, magnificent tree, American elm. Whole cities, their sidewalks and streets were lined with it. Along came Dutch elm disease, and whole cities were denuded. So one of the things we paid attention to was the biodiversity and selecting a variety of trees for replacement trees in the neighborhood. The conflict between trees and infrastructure has become such a major issue because both things are important. Trees add value to property. Trees reduce your energy consumption. Trees clean the air. Trees provide habitat for wildlife. Trees have value, and so does infrastructure have value. And they come into conflict with one another, and I think 90% of the time the tree walks away the winner of that conflict. There are a variety of solutions to the problem of trees versus infrastructure. Selecting the right tree for the right place is one of them, so that you don't wind up mutilating the tree to accommodate wires. Selecting trees that have fibrous root systems that don't come into conflict and you don't have to cut their roots and perhaps make the tree structurally unstable. So what we've been trying to do is look at trees that will fit the community architecturally and beauty-wise, and yet not create the many problems that we've encountered with trees. And this should be an ongoing investigation. We should not stop at 3 or 4 species. We should try to have a lot of biodiversity in our community, that should a disease or pest come along, that we don't wipe out all of one species and have that be the dominant species in our neighborhoods. It would be nice to have trees that have similar architectural shape. There are certain limitations to street trees, like you don't want a lot of low-hanging branches that might get broken by trucks or whatever. You want to have trees that will ultimately provide enough headroom for pedestrians. You want to have trees that are root-friendly, so to speak. And this has emerged as sort of a sub-science that is continuing to develop, and we will continue to monitor that and continue to try to broaden the palette of tree species that will keep Gerstle Park such a beautiful neighborhood. I moved my office into Gerstle Park about 7 years ago, I guess it is now, more or less, about 7 years ago, and I just love it here. We wind up spending more time in Gerstle Park than at our home. So we will continue to be involved. Our office, which is called Urban Forestry Associates, and hopefully we'll all go forward with a better community from the tree perspective.
Thank you so much to Ray and to Drew. You do know that everybody's volunteering their time. Okay, every one of the GPNA folks are. At this point in time, I'd like to call up Kevin McGowan, and he is the acting director of the Department of Public Works, and he'd like to share with you the nuts and bolts of what's involved with sidewalk repair, replacement, and taking trees down and putting trees up and all that jazz. And he has 2 of his friends from DPW who can help clarify any points that he needs to turn to.
Thank you, folks. Can you hear me? Great. Okay, I'm Kevin McGowan, Acting Public Works Director, and before I go on, I just want to recognize a few folks in the audience this evening, even though he's trying to hide himself. Mr. Gary Phillips, our mayor, is in the back row there, so he's taking notes, and he is very interested in our community, your community, and working together is a very important issue to us here at the City of San Rafael, not only to the council members, but to us as staff. And in light of that, we've been trying to work together as a partnership with members of the Gerstle Park Neighborhood Association, and to be honest, they've done the lion's share of the work here. And you know, you may not see it right at this point, but they've done a huge amount of effort to try to get back, to talk to contractors, to arrange this, and move everything forward. So I just want to kind of acknowledge them and their efforts that they've put into this at this point in time. So Amy asked me to talk about a few different things, and let's see if I can move some slides forward here. I will talk about the city process, and what this has to do with is in different communities, maybe not here in San Rafael, maybe different places like San Francisco, and they follow a specific process which they use to go ahead and notify property owners that their sidewalk is damaged. And based off of the Streets and Highways Code, which you should have received a letter which quoted some of that for you, based off the Streets and Highways Code, it is the property owner's responsibility to go ahead and repair that sidewalk. In some communities, we have, like San Francisco, folks don't want to repair their sidewalk. And the process that we would use is rather convoluted. Well, I don't want to say that. That's not a good word. Let's try, it's complex for us. Because as a public agency, we have to bid a project. We have to go out to the Public Contracts Code and comply with that and get prevailing wages when we get a contractor on board. So we go through a specific process. Now, I'm not going to run through every one of these points because it'll probably put everybody to sleep, and we don't need to do that. But at this point, we have a certain administration process that we go through to repair a sidewalk if somebody refuses to do that work. And It has to do with notification. It has to do with bringing these issues back to City Council and all sorts of different steps. And that adds to the cost of a sidewalk. Now, what I wanted to bring up is that's one method, having the city step in and repair a sidewalk on the property owner's behalf. It's costly. And the method that we have recommended is that the Gerstle Park Neighborhood Association look into getting a contractor. And if they hire the contractor, or if you as property owners hire the contractor specifically to repair your sidewalk, it's going to be cheaper. It's cheaper than us stepping into doing the work. So that was the whole impetus behind having a partnership with this specific group. And, oops, pointing it the wrong way, excuse me. So I've kind of got this one little slide that puts it a little bit in perspective. If the property owner moves forward, you need to get a contractor and obtain a no-fee encroachment permit from the city. Those two steps, move forward, will help you with that process. If the city steps in, yeah, if they work with you folks. If the city has to step in, we have a minimum of 7 different steps in order to get this processed and to move forward. So it's a little more complex if the city has to step in. Cost-wise, in addition, if the city has to step in, it's my estimate, these are my numbers, that, you know, if I look at a 100 linear foot piece of sidewalk, if the city steps in, it's going to cost somewhere around $12,000 to replace that sidewalk. However, if you do it yourself, or excuse me, if you work with the contractor that Gerstle Park Neighborhood Association is considering, it's going to cost you $8,000. So there's about it's about 1.5 times as expensive if the city steps in. Okay. Amy has also asked me to talk a little bit about how replacing a sidewalk works. And for some of this, for some of you folks, this may be intuitive, but I'll just kind of step through it. So if you hire a contractor to replace a portion of your sidewalk, they will come out with their crews, jackhammer the sidewalk out. Let's say that you have a tree next to your sidewalk as well. They'll take that sidewalk out. Then they'll call the city, and these fine gentlemen sitting next to me, Dave is a certified arborist, will come out and take a look at that root system that might be underneath the sidewalk to work with the contractor to let him know, okay, do you have to cut some of those roots? Do you have to, or can you leave them in place? And so we will work with you on that specifically. In addition, when the contractor comes back to build the sidewalk, it has to be a specific thickness. It has to be a specific width. And it has to be a specific slope. Why? Because a sidewalk has to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the slope component, which is a 2% cross slope, that comes from the national government. We have to comply with that. The thickness and the width of the slope, width of the concrete, that's a city standard that we also need to comply with. Can you put sand back in? No, you can't put sand back in either. There's actually a roughness coefficient associated with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So it's got to be concrete. Color-wise, you can put a little bit of what's called lamp black in the concrete to darken it up a little bit. Like I said, some of this may be intuitive to all of you, but I thought I'd mention it. So with that, yes, I can do that. On the list outside, and somebody pointed out that the list is a little bit inconsistent with the map as well. But our staff has gone out to take a look at all the properties in the area and evaluated some of the trees that are out there at this point in time. And on the map behind me and the one outside, some of those trees are indicated with a big X. The city's willing to come back and remove those trees in order for the sidewalk work to occur. Those trees are rather large, and the root system is pushing up the sidewalk specifically. So it's our opinion that those trees should be removed. So if you didn't hear Amy's question, she said, what about saving them? So if there are some trees that are not marked on this list to be removed, we'll have Dave and our crew go take a look at it, especially the root system, when the sidewalk is removed. If there's a super huge root that we didn't see before and we see that it has to be cut, we will let the contractor know that that's got to be cut. If that tree eventually needs to be removed at that point in time, we will assist with that as well. Okay? So I know you have many more questions, but I will turn it back over to Amy at this point.
Thank you very much. Gina? Gina's going to talk about the partnership that Kevin has referred to and that you know about. You have the figures in front of you. And I'll move the slide.
Okay. So, is this wireless? Can I take this off? Okay. So, as we said before, we went through a very extensive process of talking to local contractors. And in the end, we secured 3 bids, competitive bids. And is he here? No. Okay. Just this week, we finally came to the decision that we have selected Van Mitty & Sons to be the contractor of choice for this project. We got bids from Gelati Brothers, Van Mitty, and from Royaco, another local contractor. Ted Van Mitty is going to be here any minute. Yep. You're here. Oh, we missed you. This is Ted Van Mitty, everyone, and I want to thank him. This is not the easiest job for the contractors because unlike bigger jobs where they have one person paying the bill, they will eventually be contracting with each individual property owner. So, but we feel like we're in very good hands because he just recently finished a project in San Anselmo where he helped them replace all of their sidewalks. And we love the fact that his office is right here in Gerstle Park. So thank you. Okay, so I'm going to, next slide. What? Yeah. Okay. And okay, so I'm going to talk you through a little bit. I might need some help, Ted. This is the price that we have been given from Van Mitty. And it's a little bit complicated, but we like that because we feel like we want you to be able to have a very clear idea of what your particular situation might cost before you decide whether or not you want to do this. So basically, starting at the top, sidewalk with no root removal, more than 100 square feet. That would be your best deal, $12 per square foot. Sidewalk with no root removal. So now we go less when the scope is smaller, goes up a little bit. There's a $250 minimum. Second section there is sidewalk with root removal. And based on how much square footage you have at your property, the price goes accordingly. There's a price there for driveway apron, no roots, driveway over more than 100 square feet, less than 100 square feet. You can see. And then finally, if there's a location where there's large root removal or stump grinding, it's an additional $250 per tree. And I think so. Yeah. So according to the States and Highways Code, the homeowner is responsible for the adjacent sidewalk maintenance, but the city. So you would be, if you choose to participate in this program, you would be contracting with the contractor for the cement work, and the route. If back up, so far we've got 291 addresses on the list in the neighborhood. Most of that is the result of tree roots, but only in 22 of those 291 locations do they feel that the situation with the tree is so bad that the tree needs to be removed. So at this point, in 92% of the cases, there's a tree that's causing the damage, but they feel like we can go in and grind the roots. And to the best of our knowledge, obviously prior to seeing what's going on underneath the ground, we feel that the opinion is that the tree will be safe and it will not cause any permanent damage to the tree. Shouldn't. And then the city, when the tree has to be replaced, the city will come in and they will, before the contractor comes through to do the cement work, the city will cut the tree, grind the stump, and then they're finished with their part. And then Van Mitty would come in. They would be responsible for taking the sidewalk up, for grinding the roots down. So essentially, they're not taking out, if a tree has to be removed, we're not talking about taking out the entire evidence that the tree was ever there. Which also, we've also learned that means that for every tree that has to come out, a replacement tree will be put in. It obviously won't be able to go right in the exact same hole. So again, this is where everybody's situation might be a little bit different, and but that's in the general scope of what the city will do. And then the city, the big benefit for us going as a group together to get to do this job is we're getting a better price than the city could get. And the city is waiving the encroachment permit fee for every property. And basically everyone has, as we see it, 3 options. This is one option, is going together as a group. And our hope is that this is a simplified process for all of you. We promise you that we've done a lot of homework and legwork on this that we hope would save you a lot of your time. And we're also available for any questions about what we've done. If you have any, I've been emailing info. Gerstle Park goes to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions I can, forward any that I need to, however we can. Yes. Oh, and big one, the city is responsible for curbs and gutters. So if on everyone's list on the piece of paper that you were given that was site specific, in the top right corner, we put your address, we put your linear square footage, and also your total estimated square footage for your job, which is how it's bid from the contractor. So you can take that piece of paper and kind of get a sense of what your particular scope would cost. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Okay. And that we can talk about site specific things that's a DPW question, and definitely. I mean, we're a long ways off from what we're talking about doing is we've just signed on we've chosen the contractor. We're asking everyone to take this home, think about it, read about it. If you decide, we need to know by July 31st if you'd like to participate with this program. We'd also tonight like you, you got 2 handouts. One we'd like you to leave with us, and one we'd like you to take home. The one we'd like you to leave with us, we put 3 check boxes at the top. One, and this is not, you're not committing to anything. It's just giving us a sense and giving Van Mitty a sense of how much the whole job might look like. But option 1 would, when we went to this was hard for us for the contractors to bid on, because we really don't know. This is completely a voluntary program, and we don't have a sense, obviously, until tonight and until later, how many people are going to want to participate in this. The bid, this is important, the bid is based on our hope that we can get 40% participation. of the total 291 households that have been earmarked for needing sidewalk repair. So, is that? Yeah. Okay. So an offset is, that's a good question. I'm sorry, I should have said that earlier. An offset is basically a section, right, Mark? It's a section of sidewalk. It doesn't necessarily mean a certain size. It just...
It's a section of the sidewalk that's been lifted, up by the roots or, some other utility. It's a section of the sidewalk that has been lifted by roots. And the offset itself is where the concrete, heaves up in one area, stays lower in the other, and creates a hazard. It should be identified if your driveway apron was one that was identified to be removed or in need of repair, it would be on your address.
Would it be next to the tree note in that section?
Yes, it would be drive.
It was very few instances.
Yeah.
Can we do the driveway apron? If it's not on the list, in other words, would they add that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Folks, I just wanted to mention to you that we are going to, in about 10 minutes, open the discussion to questions. I want to make sure that we give you all the information that we have before any further questions are asked. And let me just turn this back to Gina. She has a couple other things to read.
Okay. So just to clarify, the way we see it, you have three choices. This is one option. Another option that I know a couple people in this room are already saying they'd like to do is you're welcome to go either do the job yourself or hire your own contractor to do the job. Or if you choose Kevin's option, the city will eventually do the work and you can pay the city to do it. So 3 options. The other thing that I would just like to really clarify to everyone is that this is just, like I said, one option. We know that everybody's situation is different. We know we are absolutely not, the last thing we're trying to do is give anyone legal advice. Our goal is simply to help the neighborhood work as a group for those who want to do this program. Any good? Yep. Yeah. And yeah, let's go ahead and, do you want to? You have some cards. That, you know what? That's okay. So if, we're going to collect the cards. Yeah. Well, yeah, the question was, it's a very good question. Question was, what happens if we don't get 40%? Let's invite Ted to answer that.
Okay. Hello, my name's Ted Van Mitty. I'm your neighbor. We've been in the neighborhood for over 15 years, and looking forward to fixing up the sidewalks. I walk the neighborhoods like everybody, and it's going to be exciting. It'll be, like to see everybody participate if you can. I'm not really looking at this as trying to go into the neighborhood and make a lot of money. I'm trying to make it all at a reasonable cost and make it affordable, and trying to break it down into a simple system. If there's little roots under the sidewalks, and we're not gonna say roots. If the sidewalk is obviously raised, then and you got to go in and take roots out, then it would be extra. And we'd be working with Dave, identifying any of the roots that may be potentially damaging to the tree. Hopefully there's going to be a happy median in that. If people are, want to know what the difference between a sidewalk and a driveway, if the sidewalk that goes across your driveway is noted, then that's called a driveway apron. It's not just the the area of driveway in front of the sidewalk. It's from the back of the curb to the back of the sidewalk. That is called a driveway apron, and there are areas where there's driveway aprons that are marked up. So, okay, so tonight, I guess people will either write on the piece of paper that you'd like to do the work with our company, and if you'd like to do the work with our company, we could go out and measure up your property and give you send you a proposal. If you write your names, your address, emails, it's going to make my life a lot easier. And then we'll go ahead and send everybody that's interested in a quote the quote. Go ahead. Well, there wasn't any, what can be done is there can be a root barrier installed at the back of the sidewalk or between the planting area and the sidewalk. I didn't include any root barrier installation, but if we do chop a root, it would be either chopped or ground down, and there's no guarantee that the root's not going to grow back if you leave the tree in there. So, we'll.
Now, these are questions for our DPW folks, and I'll turn the microphone over to that. I just want to be sure that before Ted sits down, that you're comfortable, that you've gotten enough information. Just a second about the contract itself, and the timing of the contract. You heard July 31st. I'm just going to add to this as far as timing, that the GPNA is looking at beginning this construction in the fall, and taking no more than a year to finish this. This is our hope anyway. So I wanted to make sure that got said. I'm going to pass this back to Ted, anything about the contract, and then if there's a specific thing about the trees, why don't you pass the microphone over to Dave?
Sure. Absolutely. So if you want to just do the entire section, the cost will change if you go over the 100 square foot. I'm still going to do it. I mean, if one person wants to do it, I'll go out and do it. I have some cards, and we have a website, and we are right down in Gerstle Park. Yeah, I have some business cards, and I think there is some information available, that you can take tonight. But our office is right here in Santa Fe. We're right on B Street. I'll leave some outside. Yeah.
Program, is that two different contracts?
It's just if a tree needs to be removed, then okay. So just the roots, we would take the sidewalk up, and we're going to ask the city of Santa Fe to obviously keep tabs on any tree or root removal. No, the city is going to be working with us as far as I know, but I'll let Dave talk about that.
We have a situation where the roots have lifted the sidewalk up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it in the city come in and rebuild the sidewalk above those roots, elevate the sidewalk to where it does meet the codes and everything?
I think it's going to be, case specific. If there's enough room for a sidewalk, you want to try to keep less than a 5% grade in the direction of the sidewalk and less than a 2% cross slope. So if that can be achieved by building it up and dropping it back down, then I would think that you could save your tree roots. I think we'll work together on that. If there's a concern about the tree roots and the being chopped and whether or not you could go up, I don't think you're going to want to have a bunch of skateboard ramps all around town. So, not that there isn't right now. we'll do as much as you want to do for the same costs that we have. Yes. If you're in the Gerstle Park area, then I'll honor that cost. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I could take the sidewalk out. You get your plumber in there to fix the sewer line, and we'll put it back. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of instances where unknowns are there. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. The city's paying for the tree. Yeah. Well, yeah.
The figures we have here are on the assumption that markings were correct. Marks may not be correct. If we were going to go with you, would you come on the location and give me an estimate?
Yes.
That also will pass the city regulations.
That's the idea.
My offset is not caused by a tree. What could have caused it and received replacement, it's not going to make it from happening again.
A lot of the sidewalks in Gerstle Park are, old sidewalks. I mean, it's an old neighborhood, and, they're crumbling. So an offset is anything above a half an inch. Well, if it's that much, it could be a combination of settlement and just, more than likely, if it's not a tree, it's settlement. So, and old sidewalk.
Very, very large tree must be removed. What would be the sequence of events? You come in, break up the concrete, then the city comes in, hires
It'd be nice to do it that way, though.
Take the tree out, and you're going to grind the stump. Now, what are you going to do about the roots that are this big around that are going across?
Dave, just so everything.
We remove it.
We remove the tree down to the ground, grind the stump, and then the contractor comes in and breaks down the sidewalk, and the contractor will be removing the root that's under the existing sidewalk. No, it's possible, and we've done it. I mean, it's something that we do. So we have a tree contractor that comes in with a very large stump grinder.
The 250 minimum, is it going to be a minimum to take that stump out?
No, the city takes the stump out. The existing stump of the actual tree we will take out, and that's part of our contribution.
You will take, including the stump, you will take it out?
Correct.
Okay. So, does that answer?
I have a quarter one, and we have, does that mean the city, if I move forward with this, like, I'll pay for my part of the city?
Correct.
We'll need to take a close look at it. So if you decide to move forward, Dave and Mark probably go out and take a look at it. We'll need to work it into our program in some way and work with Ted on that.
Okay.
I can ask it. So at the my lot's on a corner, and it's not on the list. So one is, can I get on the list? I was on the list, and I got a letter that said I was on the list, and I got another letter that said it wasn't. So I have so at the corner, there is the sidewalk was, from what I understand from previous owners, was buried by the street when they raised the level of the other corner street. So there's no curb for about four feet in two directions, and it's a very well used corner. So I get bicycles and baby carriages that struggle to get across, dirt. So what I want to find out is, can I get added to the list? And two, would the city redo this curve, or do you have to look at it?
Okay. You guys, you know what? we're in a really limited amount of time to get through a lot of questions. So what I'm going to ask is if maybe any specific questions like this, maybe we ask the guys from DPW separately. They're available to answer afterwards. Is that okay, you guys? Or call. Yeah, give me your card and yeah. Okay. Okay. So Kevin, do you want to answer the two that I gave you?
Sure, we have some interesting questions here. What is the city's timeline for homeowner to decide? And we are working collaboratively with this group. So you heard the timeline from Amy and Gina, and if the city has to take action to repair a sidewalk, we would want to do that after you folks move forward with your program. The hope is that you will move forward by utilizing Van Midi and take care of the sidewalks yourselves. But if the city does have to step in, it would be after that point in time. So the next question here is, the city of San Rafael has always repaired the sidewalks by removing and paving new concrete. Why isn't the city footing this bill? Prop J13 something. Okay, it's my understanding that based on the code that we have referenced to you folks, that it is the property owner's responsibility to repair the sidewalks. If you have something in writing, something that says that the city stepped in at some point in time and took ownership of this sidewalk, please let us know. Give it to me. Let me take a look at it. I'll be glad to look at anything that you have. But at this point, it's our perspective that it's the property owner's responsibility to repair the sidewalks.
So I'm going to pass. I'm trying to answer everyone's questions, but I'm also trying to make the best use of our time. So what I'm doing here is just grouping together the questions that I feel like go to the right person so they can answer a few at a time, okay? So here's the... Yeah.
Waiving of the fee, is it an enforcement permit or a construction permit? Based on square footage, work to be done?
No, each encroachment permit is about $260, okay?
Yeah.
We would charge you the time at which our staff utilizes to administer that work. And generally the encroachment permit fee it covers our time when we have to go and inspect some work in the field. This is more complex in that it will take more of our staff time. So in a way, yes, but it's specifically for our hours. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. So I'm going to pass this over to Dave Davenport, who is in charge of the trees for the city.
Thank you. It says, will the city be responsible for the tree root removal if necessary? We will be responsible for the removal of the tree and the immediate stump. Sorry. The tree roots under the slab, Ted's crew will be responsible for. That's why he has it broken down in sidewalk with root removal and without. I hope that answers the question. Do you have to replace the tree? Yes, we would really prefer if all the trees were replaced. We want to preserve the character of the neighborhood and the urban forest in Gerstle Park.
Yeah. So we're working on that. We're not quite there yet with to be able to kind of concretely say exactly which trees we're and we also, you know, this is an open committee. If that's an area that's of particular importance to you, we're going to continue through this summer to we're close. We started with a very long list that DPW presented with of possible street trees. We all kind of unanimously, including Dave, thought a lot of them weren't really appropriate to our neighborhood. We've basically whittled it down to a list of 3 or 4 right now, and we're really close. And we'll we'll get that out as soon as we have it.
So to give you a better sense of timing, the summer is going to be spent with this urban forest tree plan, working it out, going street by street, trying to figure out the best plan. And then September, where is Ted? September, when do you think? July 31st is when all contracts have to be in if you're going with us. Don't forget that date. And then when do you think you might start the work? So it really could start in the summer. It could start in August, right?
One important thing I should have mentioned and didn't is that the way that the payment schedule is going to go is Vanity is not requiring a deposit. They will be billing as the sections of the neighborhood are done. It'll be billed upon completion. And then for each homeowner, yeah. As soon as your sidewalk is done, you will be sent a bill. And then is it? Okay. Okay. Back to Dave.
Okay. How tall will the replacement trees be? Who pays for the tree? And will all of the replacement trees be elms? Well, normally we plant a 24-inch box tree, which can be anywhere from 6 to 10 feet in the ground. And we pay for the tree, and we will plant the tree. And will all of the replacement trees be elms? I doubt any of them will be elms. Elms have a very invasive root system, as well as some of the species out there that are causing the problems.
How do you plan to handle the irrigation if someone doesn't have irrigation?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. The homeowner will be responsible for the irrigation of the tree. We'll supply the gator bags. I don't know if you've ever seen the green bags that we put on newly planted trees. That really helps with the irrigation, but the homeowner will be ultimately responsible for filling those. Well, hopefully we're going to choose species that do not cause that problem, and that's the whole reason for our urban forest regeneration plan.
I think we're taking the emphasis of trying to help your community by installing and purchasing the trees. If 15 years or, well, let's see, how long have those trees been in place? 50, 60 years or so? Okay, so if my grandkids come back and that tree is pushing up the sidewalk again, I'm pretty sure that we will have the same approach, that the tree is your responsibility. We're helping out because we have a partnership here, and we're contributing by installing the tree, and you folks are choosing the type of tree that you would like to see so it doesn't change the character of the community. But we still believe that it is your responsibility to repair the sidewalk, even if this new tree that's installed pushes it up.
Generally not. We don't feel that root guards are very effective in the long term, especially if they're in a narrow planter strip like that. And that's why we're trying to choose trees that we don't have to necessitate putting in root guards. So we really don't think that they're a viable option.
Now, there are a lot of methods, techniques that you can employ and part of replacing your sidewalk that can help with preserving the length of the sidewalk. So there's reinforcement that you can install that as long as it complies with the city standards. It's above and beyond what is typically called for. I think it's, again, a case-by-case basis. Ray has a lot of experience with this and what works and what doesn't, and we're currently working directly with the Department of Public Works staff to see what may work within this environment. And so just keep in mind that the technology has advanced a lot since the sidewalk was first installed 50 years ago.
Okay, liquid amber trees totally taking out the sidewalk, but tree is going to be removed. Why? Well, because it's totally taking out the sidewalk. I don't quite understand that question. But oh, it's not. Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, we can always add it to the list. Yeah, we're flexible, so that's not a problem.
So personally, I'd like to commend Dave because he was very conservative when he came up with this this list of trees that need to be replaced. in some instances, I think people are going to be not happy, and in some, I think that you guys are willing to look at every situation. He wasn't going to, you know, push the envelope with how many trees, and they also, I think, we're trying to do a small scope of work, you know, at this first initial onset. So, yes, they'll consider any request. Okay.
I do. See, this one is, I don't think we have 75 square feet to be responsible for. Someone didn't measure correctly. Remeasuring is essential. I'll let Mark answer that.
Yeah, that was actually on the back of the card.
If there's a question on the measurements, we can come out to that address and remeasure for you. But measurements were just done a second time. We just did a walkthrough again and remeasured and remarked. So, but that being said, if you have a question or are questioning the measurement, we'll be more than happy to remeasure your address. That's actually, I think I might have that question here. The question was, what do we determine what is, you know, what needs to be replaced? Basically, that's what you're asking. What is an offset? Ted had already mentioned that we use a criteria of a 1/2 inch or more in a sidewalk being lifted up to determine, yes, that's a hazard and it needs to be marked out. That being said, all sidewalks have a lifespan of anywhere between 30 and 40 years. And, you know, the sub-base or the bad compaction could also cause them to sink and begin to deteriorate. And you can't see all that through the concrete. So when my guys go out and look, they're also looking for, you know, the sidewalk fracturing and sinking along with the uplifting. And that's how they determine, you know, how much needs to be removed. Well, that's a temporary repair that we do to, you know, to make the sidewalk safer. That being said, it's not a permanent repair because you're not removing the sidewalk and you're not removing the issue that's causing the sidewalk to either sink or lift up. So, and that itself only lasts maybe a year, and then you see us come back out again and putting more blacktop onto the sidewalks.
So that was a courtesy to you as a property owner. Oh, okay. She had asked if the city is out there putting asphalt or blacktop down on these areas that are broken or cracked or displaced, how come we're not replacing the entire sidewalk on their behalf? So my answer to that is that it's been a courtesy to go ahead and put this out there. Maybe not to you as the owner of the sidewalk, but to the general public who have to walk that sidewalk. We want to make sure that they do not trip. We want to do our best effort to help the community by putting something down and then notifying you as a property owner that your sidewalk needs to be replaced. And that was our intent. We're trying to help everybody out, put a little blacktop down on these cracks so somebody doesn't trip, and then give you notice after that.
No. Yeah.
No, I know. Yeah. I just mean in terms of adding more trees to this list. I hope that the overall objective is really to keep as many of these wonderful, beautiful trees that are good and, you know, the point of this gentleman who asked earlier if it could possibly be done that you kind of ramp up and down over a route or, you know, take out a particular route or whatever. Was that approach considered for the 23 the kind of grading, if at all possible?
You know, Ted can probably talk about this a little bit too. He may have more experience specifically with sidewalks, but it's been my experience that it's very difficult to make that work. You have to make a 5% longitudinal slope and a 2% cross slope work. Not only that, you have a tree root that's underneath it. What happens year to year? That tree root will swell and contract and it'll change so that you will still have an issue a year, 6 months, 2 years down the line where it's not compliant. It's going to be a safety issue. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Ted, but
I think each tree is probably, going to be looked at specifically just to see, if we can make that work in that particular, the front of your property. Because, like I said, you've got to try to keep it within the codes. And if there's not enough room, and if we're not making handicap ramps, we're making sidewalks. So it can't be too steep. And if we do leave the roots underneath there, it will be a problem. I mean, I think the whole idea here is to try to fix the sidewalks so they're not going to be continually getting raised up by the tree roots. So, I mean, it would be a good idea to take as much of the root out if the tree is going to stay, to make sure that we don't have to go fix it, 5 or 10 years down the line. So there were some questions here. If we need to get a tree removed, we'll be charged $14 or $12 a square foot. If you're on the list and it says tree to be removed, it's probably a good bet that sidewalk's going to be a $14 square foot sidewalk. There's going to be a lot of roots underneath of it. If it's flat sidewalk, and there's no roots that have raised it, then it's $12 a square foot. I think most of you, when you look at the sidewalk, you're gonna know right away whether or not it's a simple sidewalk repair or a major sidewalk repair. And the idea of taking out sidewalk and replacing it with tree roots, the battle is with the tree roots. It's simple to take the concrete out. The tree roots is where all the fun starts. So, and we're gonna work with the city, and they're gonna look at the tree roots and make sure that we're not gonna, if the tree is gonna stay, make sure the tree is not gonna die. I mean, we like trees too. I'd like to go street by street, if at all possible, or quadrants or whatever. And if we do street by street, I'd like to keep one side of the street open and work on if that is a case. There's a lot of areas where it's both sides of the street coming out. I think for everybody's safety, it'd be nice to have one side of the street passable at all times. I know there's lots of mothers pushing babies around, and it'd be nice to make sure they got sidewalks to push their babies around on. Well, I'm going to try to work in an area if at all possible. So,
and we'll make every effort that GPNA is at a little bit of a loss here because we are a voluntary, essentially a club, and we are for owners and renters. So we don't have a way to reach the property owners, and a lot of the property owners don't live in the properties. So we need DPW to help with getting the word out, and maybe we'll talk to them again about doing a follow-up mailing to people. Because we hope that we can get as many people to fix their sidewalks, period, no matter how they do it.
It's a good question. Let's just say if you're, like you suggested, the property owner just down the street, maybe we haven't gotten a hold of them, but we will still try to contact them. We'll do our best, and worst comes to worst, we can't get a hold of them, and 9 months down the line, the city will have to step in and take care of business with that property owner who doesn't respond. Not really. Not really.
The question, I think it would be for you, Kevin. So I would be really inclined to replace my whole sidewalk if I could pay over a longer period of time. And I'm wondering, does the city ever do that kind of thing where they take it either out of your taxes or
It's my understanding that once it's placed on the tax roll, that you are supposed to pay it that year. So the whole amount would be placed on the tax roll. Now, I'm not an expert in this, so I would need to do a little bit of research if we move down that path. But it's my understanding that you got to pay it in the first year.
So we could be part of this program and have year to pay instead of the 10 days.
No, I think maybe we're mixing things up. So if Ted does the work, he has a contract with you to go ahead and replace everything in front of your house, you pay him directly. If the city has to get involved and we go through that long process that I had up there, 10 or 12 steps, then it'll be assessed on your tax roll. Okay?
Can I ask you that question? I've been fielding a lot of questions this week through the website, but one of them was, is there anything that the city could do in the instance of a hardship of somebody who just does not have the means to do this at all?
You know, I haven't looked into this at this point. So right now, I think my main effort has been trying to work together with this group. So it's a decent question. We haven't crossed that bridge yet. If it does come up, I will be glad to look into it and work with the city manager and the mayor and everybody else to see if we can come up with a solution to try to help folks out.
We do have a tree maintenance program, and mainly it's to mitigate hazards, broken branches, that type of thing, and to provide clearance for 14 feet on the street and 7 feet on the sidewalk. So if you can, let me know where you live and give me your address, I can inspect your tree and see if it needs that kind of work.
Yeah, so what is the plan in terms of, we live on B Street, for example, and I take it we have 35 linear feet that need to be uprooted and replaced. In terms of diverting the traffic, this actual pedestrian traffic, is the city going to take responsibility to do that? I mean, my concern as a homeowner is that if there's, the whole sidewalk is torn up and someone is walking down the street in the middle of D and then they go around a car or something like that, as opposed to walking on a crosswalk. Does that make sense? Like, are there going to be permits or something that are going to be, where you're going to clean off that area so when our section is being worked on, there's a clear, distinct path as to where the pedestrians should walk? Or theoretically, are you going to divert them to walk all the way back down D, down that?
So you heard one of the answers from Ted is that they would like to get as many properties on one street at a time. And correct me if I get this wrong, that helps them out. He also suggested that in doing the work, let's say you have work on both sides of D Street. He would suggest, let's do work on one side at a time. Why? Because then you can divert the pedestrians on the other side of the street. I would also add to that I wouldn't want him to close more than one block at a time. So not the entire length of D Street. I don't think that's a great idea. So one block at a time.
But in terms of the liability, like the city is going to mark and explain to pedestrians if there's work being done and to move it, or is that responsibility on the homeowner?
Ted will put up we will request that Ted put up the pedestrian detour signs. It's an arrow, use this side of the sidewalk closed, go this direction, put the other barricades up, in order to divert the pedestrian traffic.
Yep. My neighbor has offsets, and I noticed that they were not marked.
What?
Can I give you their address?
Throw them under the bus. Yeah. Yeah, we did have two others. Basically, I'll tell you, Gelati Brothers was the closest to Van Mitty's bid. Part of the reason we went with Van Mitty is because we felt that their bid was it had too much unknown. They were just giving a flat price per square foot, but they said that any route work at all was going to be done on time and materials basis. And we felt like the number one thing on most people's minds was going to be, what is this going to cost me? And we felt like we really just, we tried to work with them, we tried to refine it, but we really felt like we couldn't stand up in front of you and say that we knew what this might cost you the way that their bid was structured. It was $1,550. Yeah, and then the third bid was in the $25 a square foot. It was kind of, yeah. It was a no, thank you. Yeah, but yeah.
I just want to say thank you. I think that this is a true neighborhood city collaboration. I'm so proud of Judy and I really appreciate the effort. Great job.
Thank you. Thanks. Anybody else? I feel like we hit it. We're like 2 minutes to spare, and we got all the questions.
A lot of the questions I have.
Do you need a permit and inspection?
Oh, this is a good one. You might want
So, yes, you need a permit, and we do need to inspect it. Let's just say you decide to go ahead and replace your sidewalk yourself. That would be fine, but there are specific standards that we want to make sure that you adhere to. It's got to be the right concrete, it's got to be the right slope, and it's got to be the right, you have to have score lines in it, and we have standards for that. So we will help you if you want to go ahead and do that yourself. But we do recommend that you hire a professional. It's faster. These guys know what they're doing. Not to say that anybody doesn't, but it's just so much faster than when these guys move through.
Yeah.
Sorry, one last one. Do you know when we were first notified of the need to replace our sidewalk? What date were we first given a notification?
Well, what? Yeah, January 2014. DPW sent some 30-day notices to Bayview. I think that, and then some residents on Bayview immediately contacted GPNA and said, "What's going on?" And so we started talking to DPW, and then that was when we started talking about working collaboratively. And so then we had, actually just about a year ago, last May, we had a community meeting just to really talk about, this was the first people, I don't, how many of you actually went to the meeting last year? Great. So, I mean, I'll tell you all a 30-second closing story. This morning, in talking to Ted this week, he told me that he just finished doing a job in San Anselmo. So I called their Department of Public Works and I asked about how their project was structured. And I was fully expecting they were going to tell me that they did a collaborative project just like we're doing with our neighbors and the DPW. And they said, "Oh, no, we gave them, I said, "Oh, well, what did you do? Did you give them a 30-day notice?" "Oh, no, we gave them a 20-day notice." And basically we said, "Here's the price if we do it for you, or you have 20 days to do it yourself." And then they sent Ted and crew through and did it and built them. So when I heard that, I felt like, we're pretty lucky. This is, these guys have been really, really accommodating to us, and they're really listening to us, and I think we should realize that. Yeah.
Well, I agree, and I think you're doing everything by the code, but I have to ask the question just because I'm confused about it.
Sure.
The code says, yes, we're responsible for the sidewalks, but it also accepts conditions that are caused and maintained by another party. So the tree roots were planted and maintained by the city. They're uplifting the sidewalk, so why are the owners responsible for that?
I think I answered that already. That question came up, and I said, if you have some documentation that says that the city planted these trees, we'll be glad to look at it. Well, I wouldn't want to go against that, but
I was there the
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but if you've got something that says in a piece of paper that I can bring to our city attorney to say, hey, I have this, how do we deal with it now?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I've lived here on D Street. I mean, I don't live there anymore, but I've lived there since I was 5 years old. And you mean to tell me they planted all those trees, same kind of trees, and the city didn't plant them? You mean every individual homeowner planted those trees?
No, that's not what they're saying.
Are you kidding?
I'm saying if you have some documentation that says that the city planted them.
Then essentially, we own the trees,
When I was a
right?
kid,
So we have a right
the
to cut
city
them
used to
down.
come and trim those trees.
We could
No
cut them
more,
down
no
if
more.
we so wish, if we're the
Just-
owners.
The only company that comes and trims those trees is the PGE or telephone if they're obstructing the line, okay?
19 years,
Now,
one
what
time.
I'm hearing in this meeting is the city, it's good that you're working with us, but the city wants to get out of this and they put a code in, okay? That's what it is. And don't tell me that the city didn't plant those trees, because I know they planted those trees.
It's not a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the city said that.
Okay.
I can bring it down.
They took them all out on 4th Street. Yeah.
In
He's
front of-
taking out on C Street too.
Okay.
In front
Well-
of my house on B Street, they did the curb and handicap crosswalk, okay? And at those meetings, they said, the city council said those trees were planted by the city. That's what they said. There was a big thing that they didn't want to cut the tree down, crosswalk, but they said that those trees.
Folks, I'm going to, because it's past our time, I want to encourage you, no, seriously, because many of you have some very important questions to ask the city. I want to encourage you to speak directly to the city on this issue. And it's very important, as those of you who are preparing to leave, that you turn that form in. Just put it on one of those tables, or else we won't be able to go forward. Here's Gina.
Yeah. So again, you're not committing to anything. This is also partly staying connected with us because we don't have a way to connect with everyone. So we would really appreciate if one of the boxes is just, I don't know. I haven't decided. I'm thinking about it, but at least we'll be able to stay in touch with you and give you further details as they come up. Timber, last one.
Today, because I respect what you're saying on the history, but I mean today we have the opportunity for a partnership to fix our infrastructure, which is aged and has lived long past what Ted said is an average, sidewalk life. We've got the beauty and the value of large canopy trees, which over 35, 40, 50 years are going to live sidewalks. But we also have everybody in one room knowing that this is money, a sensitive subject, but also that your property values are raised. So many values out of it. And we learn as we go. So if some mistakes were made on species, but what we really are excited about today is that we get a chance to work together to build for the next 40 years. And I hope everyone's going to be thankful for that and address some concerns that came out. But I think what's happening here for the trees and the sidewalks is very, very positive. And I can speak to Ted's work personally. He's top notch and very fair. And he didn't pay me to be here, but I've worked with him before. And we're lucky to have him as contractor.
All right, on that note, I really thank you, Timber. That was a sweet way to end. Please put your sheet on the way out, and if you want to talk specifically to the city officials or to Ted Van Mitty, take an opportunity now. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming. Take care. Hope you join the GPNA.